All right, Sid, welcome to the show. Thanks for hanging out with me today. It's nice to meet you.
Hi, Jonathan. Good morning. It's pleasure to be talking to you today.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's barely past morning here. So where is it where you are? What time of day is it right now where you are? Is it around 8, 9 o'clock maybe?
It's almost 10:30.
Oh man, you're staying up late to talk to me, so we better make this good.
I'm sure it's gonna be great.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun to talk startups and entrepreneurship with you. So you're coming to us from India, which is awesome. So for the audience sake, as we were talking before we got started, I sort of tried to do a little bit of research and see how you got to where you are today. But the audience tends to love a really good origin story. So could you share a little bit about maybe your education and how you got to being a creator of a startup?
Absolutely. So I belong from a very small town called Barwa. It's almost 60 kilometers from the city where I am in right now, which is Indore. And so that's a small village. So we barely used to have any schools or colleges over there. And talk about English communication, right? Like in India, Hindi is the national language.
Sure.
So we did not have any English schools at that time, international schools at that
Really?
time in the village. Yeah. So my dad took the bold decision of shifting us to the city side. And I mean, he just thought that's going to be great for the kids. So we came to the city. We started, it was extremely tough, moving from a village to a city. It has its own problems. We shifted there. And I guess then the journey kind of began when I started doing my education. I started growing, and then I wanted to myself go into a bigger city called Mumbai, which I think is what the second name for India could be on a global stage.
Right, right. So what were some of those changes you noticed between really small city and big city? What were some of maybe the goods and the challenges as well? What did you notice about it?
I think it's mostly about the adaptability, how you come in and how you perform, right? Like that is also something very common between when you shift from in service industry to starting your own business, right? Like when you're working for somebody versus how you shift to making that adjustment. So it's basically pulling you out from your comfort zone and putting you into a whole different zone where you're struggling to make a space for yourself, where you're trying to fit in. You're
Yeah.
not sure whether you should be your original self or you should just adapt to what you're seeing around you. And somewhere you tend to lose yourself because again, as humans, we are bound to be social. So at times in the initial days it was extremely tough. I remember crying myself because it was very tough for guy coming from a village who could barely speak any English into a school which was all high and fancy.
Mhm.
And so yeah. I
So
mean,
so looking back, do you think your father made the right call though? Do you think it worked out good
I think
for you?
absolutely.
Yeah.
He kept putting us into uncomfortable situations where we had to decide between what we would really want to be and how do we really want to represent ourselves. And I think that is one of the most important thing because see today sitting here, I basically am still in the same city in Indore. While I have traveled the world across, and about 90% of our customers are outside India.
Wow.
So I think, yeah. So I think that that particular inapt ability was adopted right from the school days, and that's all thanks to that.
Right, and paid off because that's part of, and we'll get to the company, but as part of running a startup yourself and working with startups is the adaptability, which is a really great point. I'm curious if I'm going to lead you here a little bit. Were you a good student? I saw some comments on your profile about your history as a student. Were you a good student or just maybe focused on other things?
Not at all. So I would say I was an average student. I was basically the last bencher that you have in these schools, right? So I never I never focused too much on these studies. I was just comfortable in the subjects that I was really confident in, and I used to make sure I was not one of those guys who would sit up 12 a.m. In the night and be studying for
Yeah.
the exams. I couldn't be that guy. I used to enjoy going out, participating, meeting people, understanding who they are, what it is. I was more of a logic guy. So
Right.
in school and in college, there were few subjects in which I used to be the university topper, and there were few subjects in which I used to barely pass.
Sure, but I think that's important for people that are going to listen to this to note is you don't have to be the best student, right? You know, you had your own strengths you could focus on. I read a little bit. It looks like you really enjoy sports too, so you may have been enjoying some sports instead of just going out all the time. So that's really cool. You got your undergrad degree in computer engineering, is that right?
Yeah, I did software engineering, and like you said, I have played national level for almost four different sports. I've played international for one particular sport, which was baseball, and I definitely did my engineering from Mumbai, and then I joined Accenture, which is also one of the biggest IT companies in the world.
Really, really big company. I've done some work with them. Actually, not too far in the distance here recently myself. Really, really big company. So for folks who don't know, Accenture is one of the top management consulting firms in the world. Really, I want to say they have a couple 100,000 employees. So you worked with them. You graduated from college. I think it was around 2016, somewhere around there from university. Is that right?
I graduated in 2014 and I
14.
was
That's
working
right.
with
14.
Accenture from 2014 to 2016. I created a good name for myself. Uh, Initially, when I joined, I just went out to play because Accenture gives you a lot of free time in the initial days.
Sure.
So I
There's
joined
probably
there.
probably a lot of learning opportunities though, working for a company like that as well.
100%, 100%. I wouldn't be what I am without Accenture. So while I graduated from college, I was already working with a lot of startups as a freelancer,
Uh-huh.
and I already had a lot of background knowledge. But when I joined Accenture, that is where the doors really opened, and I realized that the huge amount of opportunity it has to offer. So that is where the things really started moving. I really developed a very deep interest into technology.
Right. And so I have my dates wrong there. It looks like in 2016 is when you founded your current company. Could you tell us a little bit about it and what you do there?
Yeah, so I started GraffersID in 2016. We are a website and a mobile application development company. We also provide dedicated developers on monthly contracts. Like the world knows that India is the IT capital of the world.
For sure.
So we provide we ensure that the companies across the world have a direct access to the Indian talent. That is what we are trying to do.
Very cool. And walk us through a little bit about that thought process between being an Accenture and saying, you know what, I'm going to go start my own company. What was it about that sort of made you make that leap? What Tell us about the circumstances there.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I was working with these startups right from the college, right? And one of these guys, so I have been very involved in the journey for each person that I've worked with, right? I used to enjoy listening to the ideas, enjoy brainstorming how the idea is going to go to the market, how are they going to acquire their first 1,000 customers, what role is the technology going to play in it? Um, uh, how we all know that there is only a few startups which actually become successful, and
Yeah.
about 90% of them fail, right? Now, if you also see the background of these founders, how they actually do things is they are putting a lot of their hard work, a lot of their efforts, and a lot of their savings, right? Like really hard on savings. Some people are starting in their 30s, some are starting in their 50s, some are starting in their 70s. So everyone wants to be stable. Now, when somebody's putting so much of time, effort, and energy, uh, and it all becomes a failure with 90% as the failure rate, it's really tough to see, especially when I was involved with them. It was tough for me to see my clients suffer that much. And that is something that I did not feel comfortable about. So I thought that maybe, there is something going wrong. How can, I mean, the world is filled with smart people. How can so many people be failing? There must be something common which people are not trying to figure out. And that is when I said that, oh, you know what, I'm just going to go into something that I really feel strongly about, where I wake up every day in the morning and I want to have that kick uh,
Right.
in the veins.
Was it nerve-wracking to make that leap? You found your passion and wanted to chase it, but was there any part of you that was like, well, this is risky for me as well?
100%. It was scary as hell. Uh, I remember it was extremely, so, like imagine like a 24, 26-year-old guy sitting out in the market and saying, okay, I want to work with the biggest products and the biggest tech companies out there.
Sure.
And I want to tell them that how the business is going to be done. And, sometimes people used to laugh, sometimes they used to make fun that, what do you know about business? You have barely done any yourself.
Right.
And I used to say, like, fair point. I won't doubt that. But I have my own expertise and I want to showcase that. So it was very tough in the start to convince people on what my expertise were and what problem I was trying to solve, which is already such a huge problem. I did a simple process. I went online, just like you. I was trying to write a lot of blogs, meet to a lot of people, and I think LinkedIn was a great platform. So I used to write everything that I knew. Like I used to create my own scenarios. I used to post online that if this was the scenario, how would I solve it? If this was my company, how would I do it? These are the 10 companies which have failed. If I would be there, how would I solve it with the help of technology? And some of those people really connected with what I was trying to say. And they felt like, yes, this guy knows what he's doing. And that is how I started getting my customers.
Very
So,
cool.
so I had like a few $100s in my pocket when I was starting out. I could not afford a proper office. I could not afford employees. I could not afford even a laptop, a proper good laptop.
Sure.
But yeah, how I think that is how the startup journey is. And today we have almost 150 plus employees. We have worked with hundreds of startups, and I'm very proud to say that almost 70% of our clients are successful and are profitably operating today.
That's something I noted as well, that when I was kind of doing some research to think about. Can we touch on that for a minute? What is it you think that sort of, why that success rate for clients? What is it about the process that you do that sort of increases that likelihood of success?
I think the process is the extremely important thing. That is what is something that differentiates us in the market. So we very stringently follow the SDLC process, which is software development lifecycle. We start with the requirement gathering process, where we try to analyze if the startup is actually ready to go in the market or does it have a loophole. I'll give you a small story. So one of my very first customers, right, like that was an Australian company who, decided to work with us. And, very good founders. They said, okay, I think you guys know what you're doing and I want to work with you. They came to me with a simple idea and they were trying to solve some logistics problems in Australia. They wanted to digitize it and get everyone on a single platform. They had a simple idea where people could post a requirement and anyone can bid for it. We thought that that is something which is already happening. Why not we go 2 steps ahead, not just one, but 2 steps ahead, and try to create a better ecosystem. With that call went on for almost a month, to and fro discussions, brainstorming, finding the loopholes. And when we actually created a UI UX prototype, they took that prototype to Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola incubated them just on the basis of the prototype itself.
The prototype itself.
So that was a huge, that was a huge validation for us, and that yes, that our process was good. Coca-Cola came on board. They started talking about how did we think about this, how did we solve this, and of course the vision of the founders. And when they came into the picture, you can imagine what the picture was like.
Yeah, right. So if I could just add a little bit to that. So maybe not just about the SDLC, the software development lifecycle, but maybe also just really good product management usage.
Yeah, so
skills.
that is where, that is where the things start, right? Like requirement gathering is where the things start about the uh, understanding of the product and seeing whether it is market fit, and embedding it with features which can actually make it successful, right? Like all the hacks that people use to acquire customers. So first we do that. Second, we create a very intuitive design which can attract people and bind them for a longer usage, right? Which makes you want to come on the platform again and again. Like a simple feature like Shorts made a complete application like TikTok, which was extremely successful.
Right.
So those are the kind of things that we have to think and embed into our design. Then comes the development part, where we ensure that the product is extremely scalable, because a lot of founders make this mistake. They want to go with the best technology in the market, where at times it is not even the best option for them. So we ensure that we are choosing the right technology, which is more suitable for the vision and the product success. So that is how we used to do it when we started the business off. Now we are working with almost 80 plus unicorns across the globe. Wow. And we are not just restricted by early stage startups, but we are also interested by the global startups who are the major leading unicorns across the globe.
Congratulations. That's fantastic. You've mentioned a couple of times, and I saw it in some of your other interviews, just this idea of validation. And I know a lot of that, you know, I talk a lot about validating an idea, trying to figure out, what the product market fit is going to be using research and, customer conversations and all these kinds of things. And that oftentimes will lead into writing physical requirements for a piece of software. Is there a process you recommend in terms of validation? Like what sort of things companies should be doing to validate a project before they're even maybe building something out right away?
Absolutely. So every time we are taking a project, either we are dedicating our few months of time which it will take to build the project up, or we are dedicating some of our developers for that specific customer. And we just want to ensure that this product really has the capacity to become the next big thing, because only then we can proudly showcase it to our customer base, right? So we validate each idea we have. The validation is, I mean, the way we do it is we break it down into different steps. The first step has to be where we understand how did the idea came to the origin, what is the story behind it, is it the found. So a lot of people, what they do is they try to solve somebody else's problem, right? Which is not actually required, and you would never understand the true gist of the problem till the time you have not faced it yourself. Even your solutions will not be relevant enough. So we always recommend this to our customers, that to solve their own problems versus solving somebody else's problem.
Great point. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
if you have a pain point and you can figure out how to solve it, you've got a business. How do you recommend going about scaling that beyond? Because I have seen it with some founders where it's a pain point to me, but it's not a wide enough pain point. How do you distinguish there? How do you think about that?
So that is where the second steps come into the picture, where the first step is to understand the idea and whether it is actually an idea. Second thing, it's actually a startup worthy idea. Second is where we try to validate it with the market, where we try to find out at least 150 genuine customers to this particular product, and we take their surveys. Now you can take surveys in multiple formats, right? Like you can just simply create a Google form and you can take feedback, or you can use tools and you can create your own landing page website where you can put certain money into paid advertising and try to get people to sign up for your website. If that works, that it's automatically a validation.
Right. So accomplishing some milestones, some early users, or maybe betas, or even just subscriptions to email, that type of thing, just as validation that there's the demand and interest out there.
Yeah, it's simple. Like you just have to reach out to your genuine customers who are going to be there once your product is launched. You want to reach out to them before you even start thinking about launching a product. So you create a problem, you find a problem, you create a solution, and then you take that solution to the audience and try to validate if they would really enjoy this. Yeah. If the answer, even if like 40% people say no, then I don't think it's a idea worth pursuing anymore. We need to have at least 70 to 80 people saying that, yes, this is a problem. The solution may vary, but at least they should agree to the problem.
Yeah, I want to call out something you just said. I think is really important for people to hear is that you're having those customer conversations before you start building something, right? So that you're not wasting time, energy, and money sort of chasing after this idea that no one wants. How does your team distinguish, or how do you guys think about this idea of, okay, you mentioned 70, 80 people who want something. How do you distinguish validating whether or not, because a challenge can be, sometimes it's easy for users to say, I want that pain point solved, but I may not be willing to pay for the solution. How do you all think about that when you work with customers? The question I'm really trying to drive toward here is, as part of the validation process with your customers, is there a component of that is understanding whether or not their end customer would actually pay for the solution itself? How do you all think about that? How do you include that in your validation?
I think that is the most important part. That is exactly how a business is going to make money. So I think what you're really asking is the business model and the revenue model of the complete product that we're trying to build. Yes, we do validate it. So when we say that we have to reach out to the end customers before validating the product, those 100, 150 people are there with you throughout the product, right? So when you're trying to tell them a solution, we also ensure to ask them the questions like, what amount would you be willing to pay for this? Would you be even willing to pay or not pay? We even give them a bracket, like, let's say a $0 to $10 per month subscription charge, or maybe, an yearly charge. What would they most likely be, willing to pay? Sometimes the customer does not want to pay anything, in which case we need to make customers the product, right? Something what Google is very good at doing.
That's a great call out right there. It's a great way for folks to think about that. So if the end customer is not willing to pay, maybe they become the thing itself. And as you said, Facebook has a number of users and it's able to sell that to advertisers. That's a really good point. Sid, I'm curious, you mentioned that you work with true startups and then obviously really big companies too. Is your process in working with them, does that vary a little bit depending on the phase of business that they're at?
100%. So for the clients who come to us at an early stage where they are just at the ideation stage, we provide them with these services of end-to-end product development, where we give them, they tell us the idea, we do our process, and we build the product for them. For the customers who already have an existing product and they want to scale that up, basically they are only looking for good quality developers who can join their workforce and who can speed up the complete, accelerate the complete process of the product. Right. So that is where the difference lies. Like for the early stage, we are doing the product, and for the funded startups, we are taking a specific part of their whole product, or we are providing them with the skilled developer who qualify to handle the massive scale of their business.
Very cool. One of the last things I want to ask you about was again, watching another interview you did. It was really good. And you were talking about this idea of the chicken and the egg, right? Having the customer and then needing money. Can you walk the audience through that thought process a little bit? I think that's important for people to hear.
So when I was starting the business, right, like I mentioned, nobody wanted to do the business or want to take the ideas. And it was very tough to even get few people to talking to you. That is where we really started, right? And that was again a chicken and egg problem, because I first wanted to establish myself as a brand so that people can come to me and then I can start charging. But in order to do that, I needed money, which I did not have.
Right.
So I broke that. There are always two ways to do that, right? Like one is you can raise investment from your peers, or the second way, you can have the best investors in the world, which is your customers, right?
Great.
So I
went
with the second approach, where I made my customers my investors. Like I mentioned, I started posting a lot about everything that I knew. And there were a lot of people who wanted to talk to me, but were not willing to pay. And I accepted it wholeheartedly. So initially, there were a few sessions which I even did, for a bare minimum cost. I never did it for free because I feel like if it is free, it's not valuable enough. So we did keep the minimum basic charges, but I definitely over-delivered. So there's no point undervaluing yourself, but I think there's a more value in over-delivering what you commit. So I made sure that, whatever I was committing to my customers, I at least delivered 2x to them, so that they can, one, come back to me as a repeat customer, and number two, they can brag about me to their fellow, to the fellow friends and colleagues. That really worked out. That really worked out, because these guys who got selected in Coca-Cola, they bragged about us to everyone, because we were extremely affordable at that point.
That's wonderful. That's great insight that you call out there. And I want to point out something else.
Okay.
Well, I was just going to say that I want to point out, you calling out your customers as your investors. The easy answer for a lot of startups is, I want to go raise a bucket of money, a whole bunch of money from, institutionalized investors and things like that. And I don't think people understand quite what comes with that. It's not, you're not just getting a bucket of money, you're getting some other things that come with it too. So it's a great way to sort of flip that. I might call it, you were early on doing what we might call crowdsourcing, right? You were using your customers to sort of get your cash flow rolling, and then just reinvesting, I assume, back in the business and growing from there.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
In a way, yes.
Yeah. Very, very, very interesting way to think about it. Well, there's a lot to consume. There is a lot of tidbits. I encourage people to kind of go back and listen to the things that Sid was sharing. There's a lot of great lessons for startups in there. Any last parting words you want to share for someone who's an entrepreneur out there, or thinking about creating a startup? Anything else you can share with them, sort of insights you learned along the way in your own process?
Absolutely. If a 26-year-old guy could crack a deal with Airbnb, if a 27-year-old guy could purchase his first office right first year out of his business, and if a 28-year-old guy could employ 100 guys, and a 29-year-old guy could start his second office in United States, I think everything is doable. Uh, right, sitting in Indore, where our headquartered is, we very recently, a few months back, we launched our second office in United States, which was a very ambitious and a proud moment for us. Something that we have been looking forward to from day one. uh, I think if we can do this, then definitely anyone in the world can do this. You just need to have trust in yourself and be more practical rather than being more emotional.
Wonderful. Congratulations on that, by the way. It's a really big accomplishment. I'm very excited and happy for you at the same time. If folks want to connect with you or the company, what's the best way to do that?
You can always check me out on the LinkedIn. It goes just like GraffersID. There is no other company with that name.
Okay.
So it should be fairly easy. And you can also check out our website, drop in a message on our contact us form. And you might just have me as well reply on it. Every now and then I take up a few customers.
That's wonderful. I appreciate you spending time with us today.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Have a great day.